All right, we'll start it up. The first story of the day is about the cell phone tax that took over social media. It's not out yet, it's not a thing yet, but it's not out of the question. They've taxed gas, video games. I've heard they tax sugar in some states. I can't confirm that though, I haven't been there. They will tax pretty much anything walking and breathing if it could get them money for their programs. So let's talk about this cell phone tax that is a possibility. Like I said, it's not out yet. But knowing California, I don't find it that far away. We'll see what happens. But why would they want to have a cell phone text messaging tax? So it's for their public purpose program budget, public purpose program. Say that 3 times or don't. But public purpose program budget in 2011, that budget was at $670 million. And in 2017, it's $998 million. So the budget for which they are running out of money went from $670 million to $998 million. And I'm guessing, just thinking, it's probably not going down. It's probably going to go up and up and up. And yes, it is funded with your taxpayer dollars, as is mostly everything. So the problem is, as their budgets are going up in California, the telecom industry that funds these programs is going down. They've went from $16.5 billion to $11.3 billion. So California has the genius idea. Their budgets are going up. They don't have enough money for their programs, and where they used to get the money and the business industries are going down. And I'm sure the telecom industry has something to do with social media and newer technology. But California also leads the nation in companies lost to China, because it's just common sense. If you raise the taxes and you make it impossible to start a small business and you penalize success for big business and small business, no one's going to want to stay there. Why would you? Just like I really don't want to stay here, to be honest. I'm already looking at places to leave to, because why would I want to stay here and give the state of California $20,000 a year when I could move somewhere nicer and cleaner with cleaner air and nicer people that would steal $5,000 from me instead of $20,000? So there's obviously businesses are going to want to leave. But anyway, they're running out of money for their public purpose program budget. Public purpose program budget. Sorry, I said it wrong the first time. So they're floating the idea of a text message tax. So it would likely, if it does end up happening and getting passed through, to be honest, I don't know how this local government works. I don't know if it's going to take a week, a month, or a year. One day you're just going to hear there's a text tax, and then you'll figure it out. But just like the gas tax and the tax and all, we'll get into it in a second. But it's likely going to be a flat surcharge in the small print of the bills if it does come. It's not going to be like every time you text, it's like 5 cents, or 1 cent, 1 cent. Essentially, it'll probably be like that. But this is how they get you. And I've noticed this at restaurants. Anytime I buy anything, they don't tell you they're stealing your money and taking your taxes. They just put it in small print, so you think you're just paying for a shirt or a meal. In a lot of other states, including other high-tax states, I believe they don't tax certain states. They don't tax retail. Certain states, they don't tax food. This isn't normal. You know what I'm saying? They had a revolt when they weren't so brainwashed in the 1700s over a tea tax. Taxing tea too much pissed people off. They were like, that's too much. Nowadays, I'm going to get into some of the other taxes they have, but they tax sugar, they tax carbon, they tax gas, they tax food, they tax retail. This is only normal to a brainwashed society who's used to handing over their money to the federal government. Anyway, you're not going to see this per text, as people might think. It's going to be a flat surcharge that you don't even notice on your phone bill. And also, I want to say, this probably wouldn't affect, according to some reports, it wouldn't affect iMessage. So that's how I use mostly iMessage. It wouldn't affect that. It wouldn't affect WhatsApp, and it wouldn't affect Facebook Messenger. So what a lot of phone companies are fighting against, as are businesses, they're trying to say this gives an unfair advantage to Facebook and WhatsApp and iMessage, which is true. It would, which is, among other reasons, not to pass the text tax, but it would tank phone companies, the very little power they have left. Because to be honest, if you go 10 years ago and said how many people use text to now, and say how many people use text versus iMessage and WhatsApp and Facebook, probably 90% of people shifted over to these programs. And it's they're the small guy, and they're trying to pretty much tank that industry, which is barely even alive now. So it wouldn't make sense. People say to me, anomaly, a text tax, that sounds crazy. They wouldn't do that. Well, let's go over to our favorite liberal, corrupt city of Chicago. They implemented this year in November. Barely anyone talked about it. I was gonna, but now here we are. I get to talk about it now. Chicago put in a 9% video game amusement tax. They called it an amusement tax. I'm just going to remind you, in the 1700s, I'm not saying to revolt. It's all peace, love, and positivity for me. But they were angry over a tax on just tea. In Chicago, they're taxing your amusement. So they're taxing the fun that you have. Literally, it's called an amusement tax. Are you amused by doing that? Oh yeah, I'm playing Rocket League on Steam. Yeah, I'm amused. Okay, well, give me 9% of that. Wait, you're going to take my money when I'm amused? That's what an amusement tax is. And they did that in Chicago. A 9% tax on PlayStation, Steam, and any online game purchases that they can regulate. But PlayStation and Steam were the ones that I read. Let's go back to sunny California. I looked up, if you live in Los Angeles or you live in other parts of California, I looked up the average, because to be honest, I don't really drive. So not that I can't drive, I just choose not to. It seems too expensive and a ripoff, at least in this state. Anyway, it's $4.30 is the average gas price in Los Angeles. $4.30. Must be an America thing, right? It's got to be Trump's fault. This is Trump's America. No, the average gas price in America is $2.88. And if you take out the liberal states that overtax, it's probably even lower. It's in the $2. And the average tax in LA is $4.30. So I did my research because I didn't want to just blame liberals or the left wing of the Democratic Party, even though I'm pretty sure it's their fault. You know, I wanted to be sure. I don't like to just talk out of my you-know-what. So I went to an LA Times 2015 article, and I was trying to figure out why the gas tax is so high in LA. I have my obvious reasons, but even they admitted, although there were some environmental things and this and that and location they tried to say, they did admit that the taxes on gas are 63.8 cents a gallon, which was found to be in 2015 15 cents higher than everywhere else, than the average. So, I mean, I'm trying to think where to start now that I've said pretty much all the information. So, taxing is the idea, and they say, of course, it's going to help the lower class. Of course it is, because when I have to pay $1,000 to start a small business instead of $200, and when I get $10,000 taken a year instead of $5,000, when I have to be locked into some sort of creepy Obamacare or Bernie Sanders scam that literally doesn't allow me to opt out, I have to pay $5,000 a year, $10,000 a year, $20,000 a year, and I don't have the option to be free to be like, nah, I don't want healthcare this year. Oh, 10 million people don't have healthcare. Maybe I don't want healthcare because I don't feel like it really helps my health, and it just kind of steals my money. And then I go to the hospital or the doctor and they tell me not to run my healthcare. That happened to me. They're like, no, don't even run it. Well, why am I forced into an $8,000 a year scam if I can't even use it? This is what they do. I mean, like I said, I like to keep it open. I don't like to just say, yes, there's problems on the right, yes, there's problems on the left. I feel like the military-industrial complex was a two-winged bird but the difference to me is obvious. And to be honest, I even think Republicans tax too much, and they don't do enough. I find that their policies are not really suiting to me. But this is what they do in liberal California. They are so generous with your money. They're so generous with the middle class's money. And whether it's progressive left to liberal left, when they say that they're funding all these programs and they're going to do all these trillion-dollar health care plans that are going to help you, I'll give you a hint. They're not taking out a loan themselves. They're not financing it. They're not starting a GoFundMe page, and the Federal Reserve is not taking out a loan or printing more money so you can have health care. I wish that was the case. If the Federal Reserve was going to make universal health care, I might say for sure. I still actually might not want it because I don't think that a singular government-run health system is very efficient personally, but maybe I'd be in. But that's not where this money comes from. So with this gas tax or amusement tax, they tax your amusement, they tax your video games, they tax your food, they tax everything you buy, they tax your income, they tax your property. You can't walk or breathe or go down or eat or drink a glass of water. Every time I drink water, I get taxed in Los Angeles. It's like a plastic bottle tax. If you really want to save the environment, just stop printing or stop using plastic cups and plastic bags. Like, give me a bag that's not plastic and don't charge me for it. Like, very simple. Give me a paper bag, or just don't use plastic bags. I don't need a plastic bag. I'll use a hemp bag if you have one, or I'll use some other. But they don't do that. Every solution they have, well, the climate's changing, so what are we going to do about it? We're going to tax you. Okay, so you're going to steal my money and it's going to change the climate somehow? Interesting. Okay, well, we're running out of money, so we're going to tax you. But the thing is, they spend a lot of money, and of course they're going to run out of money, so they have to add a gas tax, they have to add a video game tax, they have to add a text message tax, they have to retail tax, they have to tax. But here's the problem. It's a sinking ship anyway. Like I said, the budget for the public purpose program went from $670 million to $998 million. So it went up about $300 million, even more, in just 5 years. That's not equivalent to inflation. It is like doubling, almost doubling, not quite, that's an exaggeration. It's up $228 million. It's gonna keep going up and up and up. And here's the kicker. Your wages are not gonna go up. They're just not. The money that you get is not gonna go up. But what is gonna go up is the millions of people that they desperately want for some reason. It's like, California has the biggest poverty problem. It has a top 3 homelessness problem. It has the most small businesses leaving the state to go to China. But they're not trying to figure out how to give the taxpayer, the middle class or even lower class family, more money in California. They're lobbying. They spend all their time lobbying for millions of illegal immigrants and asylum seekers to come live here who are going to take out of the system. And then you have the Young Turks put out these phony studies that say, no, illegal immigrants pay into the system more than they take out. No, they don't, bro. Like, you can make your own argument for why you want them to be here, but of course it's gonna tank the system, and it's just gonna be more and more and more. I wanna go back to Chicago, who put in a 9% amusement tax. Why are they taxing your amusement? Do you think it's for your own good? Well, no, they want the money for some sort of public program that they tell you is gonna help the poor. Let's also look at Chicago. They have some of the worst violence and murder rate, not only in the country, but in many parts of the world. I'm not going to say anywhere, but if you look at Chicago and the amount of murders that go on in Chicago every year, compare it to some cities that are literally war-torn and literally have terrorist organizations in them, it compares, or and sometimes it beats that terrorist city. Like, I mean, I'll do an official study and video eventually, but compare Chicago to like some cities in Iraq, you might find that Chicago murders more people. Yeah, and that's when people say, oh, it's not just people of other religions that are terrorists. Yeah, for sure. Then let's figure out what the heck's going on in Chicago. So the fact that they steal your money to give it to the poor and middle class, it's not stopping the violence in Chicago. It's not stopping the poverty in California. It's not lowering homelessness, because the whole system that they have implemented is a failed ideology. They incentivize people to live on the streets. If you come to Los Angeles or you come to San Francisco, you'll notice one thing. The people on the streets are not really looking for help. And anybody who's lived here long enough knows this. They're not looking for food. Sometimes they are, but they reject food sometimes. They don't want help. A lot of times they have mental illnesses or extreme drug problems, but the system doesn't get them up off their feet into a job. We don't have people who are homeless because they need jobs. I'm sorry, we just don't. You go to other countries that have 15, 20, 30% unemployment, you might see some families on the street because there's no jobs available. But in America, there's more jobs than there are people, according to some studies. So they don't need jobs. Maybe you can make the argument that they're mentally unfit for a job and need help, and I might agree with you. But a lot of these people are just complacent, getting money from the government. I'm sorry people don't want to hear this. They might think it's mean and non-compassionate, but it's just true. It's an inconvenient truth. A big majority of homeless people are not there because they don't need a job. I would argue that almost none of them need jobs because they could get a job if they wanted a job. A lot of people are homeless because they do heroin, they do crack, they're doing illegal prostitution, they're like gone beyond belief, either from drugs or maybe massive problems in their life. I don't really want to do a whole psychological evaluation of it now, but they're not always the friendliest people, and sometimes they are. Sometimes homeless people are even friendlier than citizens. Some days I'm like, man, I like the homeless people even more. But what I'm saying is, California, the fact that they steal my money, the fact that they take my money every way, they're like leeches. Everywhere I go, I buy something at Marshall's, taxed. I buy a coffee, taxed. I buy a new shirt, taxed. I buy this, taxed. tax, 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 and they keep adding more taxes because they're running out of money because they need our money. They're not taking out loans. They have all these huge programs that don't work. They put billions of billions of billions of billions of, in some cases, probably trillions of dollars if you add up all the money that they've lost or squandered. And then it backfires. So not only are they stealing my money, what do you think that creates? It's why in France they're revolting. It's because just like in California, gas is even higher, $6, $7, and then they're adding tax. So when you're a middle-class family, regardless of your ethnicity or religion or gender, and you can barely afford rent, your rent is raising, your wage is not raising, the taxes are raising, and they're not actually helping you. And people that have nothing might get a few free things every now and then, but here's what it does when you don't have a good filtration system. Do I want to help people that have nothing? Of course. But they're not actually helping these people out of poverty. They're putting them in traps. They're saying, if you do crack and heroin or you're a complete, loser, and I'm not saying all the cases, but trust me, I know people. My cousin can go back to our house anytime. He has a job and a place to stay. He doesn't want to go back to the house. He's content doing crack and cocaine on downtown Los Angeles, getting $600 a month, and in some cases more, because they have all these little programs. You can get $500, $600. You can get this, that. There's people with 5 Chick-fil-A bags on the street. They're not hungry. They're not looking for a job. They're complacent either via mental illness or a massive drug and alcohol problem. I'm not saying I'm not compassionate towards them, but what California does is what socialism, communism, and far liberalism does every time. They steal money from small businesses. They steal money from the working class. They squander your money at every part. And then they either take it themselves or put it into their own pockets and their own salaries, or they just dump it off to the very, very lower class, creating a welfare system that you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you leave the welfare system, they won't give you the welfare anymore. So a lot of people are incentivized to stay there because it's, if you don't want to do it, if you don't really have ambition or drive, or maybe you have some problems psychologically or personally, it's easier to stay in that system and just make ends meet. And with the weather out here, you could live for 50 years. There's some crackheads who have like 6-pack abs. I look at them and I'm like, man, that dude is about to beat me up and steal my girl. Like the dude is like jacked. He's on the street, like literally looking like he's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm like, don't mess with that guy. But anyway, it's like they don't have a program, and this is why I say this. It is out of kindness and compassion. They need a program that is hard on people to the point where they don't just attract millions upon tens of millions of people who just want to suck out of the system, and that's what they do now. Be hard and stern on people who can get up and go to a job or not come here illegally, and then be kind once they figure out who really needs help. They don't do that. So they create a system of like 60 to 70% of people who are just there because they're allowed to be there, and California is weak and naive and foolish, and it's really not kind because they tank small businesses, they crush mom and pop shops. When you raise taxes or raise minimum wage or whatever these like progressive liberal plans are, it helps the very rich. Walmart can afford that. Subway can afford that. If you're a billionaire, it doesn't matter what happens, you're not going to be affected by it because you have enough money to do that. It incentivizes people to stay poor, and it also incentivizes people to come here. I read reports today that the Caravan, they're demanding that they get like $50,000 a pop and then they'll go home. It's like, have you ever heard of an asylum seeker that needs to escape war and poverty that's demanding $50,000 or they'll go home? They're not asylum seekers. I'm sorry, the news lied to you. Your favorite media lied to you. They don't want asylum. Haitians needed asylum. You know where Haitians went? To Mexico. Because when you're escaping war and true poverty, Mexico is a good place to be. When you're just trying to take advantage of stupid, foolish people, you march to the border and demand $50,000. That's what they're doing. It's like, overall, I'm going to get into the next story because it's very important and I want to talk about it, but this idea of a text message tax, I'm not surprised because I don't know who lied to everybody, but I think real social justice is great, being kind and compassionate and loving. But what Democrats and progressives now do is they say race, religion, gender, you're racist, you're sexist, you're xenophobic, I'm nice, I'm the savior of the world, I'm more kind and compassionate than you, I'm a better person, and if you want to have an intellectual debate, no, you're a bad person, we need to shut you up and silence you. And then when their mouth stops moving, the second that their mouth stops moving, saying, I'm Chelsea Handler and I'm so not racist, even though my family literally has Nazi roots. Look it up. She's from a family of Nazis. I'm not hating. Wasn't her choice. I'm just saying it's true. It's like when their mouth stops moving about how great they think they are, you find out that they're always stealing your money. I mean, I don't come from a family that makes a lot. My parents are working class people. My grandparents worked in factories. Like I don't come from great wealth. I worked very, very hard. I put in 10 years of work and like 80-hour weeks. I didn't take vacation for 6 years because I have a work ethic that I want to accomplish, and I wanted to live my dreams. To be honest, I didn't know this was my dream. I wasn't working towards what I'm doing now. I just stumbled along this. I was like, okay, this works because I did music. And what was important to me in music was the message. I didn't care about chains and being the top rapper, to be honest. I cared about spreading a message. So when I found out I could do it via video, it's not like I quit rapping. I'm still doing rap music, but that's not the most important thing. It's not. Anyway, I worked very hard to get here. So every time their mouth stops moving about how much they love poor and middle class people, which I would say I'm included in, middle class, I'm not poor, and even to be honest, poor and middle class people in America, I'm very grateful. I'd rather be middle class in America than middle class anywhere else. But anyway, every time their mouth stops moving, they're always stealing my money, whether it's entertainment tax, they're taxing my fun, my food tax, my retail tax, now the text message tax. I hear what you're saying, but they always come for money, and you can't convince me. It makes no sense to me. I'm going to take your money and you're going to have more money because of it. Or I'm going to take your money and I'm going to help poor people. I'm sorry. I just don't think the federal government will do a better job of helping poor people than I will with my own money. If I have $10,000 and you don't steal it, I trust myself to help. And I know, based on California, they tax the most. They have the highest small business fees. Chicago adds an entertainment tax, and they have the biggest murder rate in their city, and they can't figure it out because they don't know what they're doing. And neither did they in LA. They're not solving homelessness. I've seen my neighborhood in the last year, it could be worse for sure. I've seen my neighborhood go to shit. It's turned into a dump. And it always was kind of a dump, but it's gotten worse. I know that because I've lived here long enough to watch the progression of 4 or 5 years. Yeah, maybe it went up for a little, but I know for a fact my neighborhood has gotten significantly worse. My taxes are getting significantly higher. The price of everything's getting higher, and they keep adding more taxes. This is how you get a revolution. This is how you get a France vest movement, because right-wingers already know this. They want low taxes and freedom. Left-wingers and progressives, they want equality, and you're never actually going to get equality when you do these types of policies. So everybody will eventually come together. The people who knew that was going to happen and the people who thought the outcome would be different, but then when they realize that they're still poor and they're getting poorer and poorer and poorer, they're going to join the protest because they're not trying to make themselves poor. They just think that they're helping people, but you're really not. So overall, just to wrap it up, I'm so tired of tax. I'm probably going to get out of this state. I'm just so sick of all of these ridiculous taxes. This isn't in yet. The cell phone tax is not in, but they're working on it. They're already taxing gas. They're doing their impression of France. The reason that France is having a revolution is because they have high gas, and then they're taxing on the tax on the tax on the tax. They're doing the same thing here. And I don't care what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders or Nancy Pelosi says, this system always tanks. The taxes are going to get higher. The programs are going to get bigger. The amount of money that companies are going to pay into them are going to get smaller. The companies are going to leave from the big businesses to the smaller businesses. And then the taxpayer, the working class, middle class, and even upper lower class people are the ones that are footing the bill. It's just true. They're not paying for this. The Federal Reserve is not paying for this. It's always the people, and this system that they have, combined with the fact that they want unfettered illegal immigration, and they're desperately asking for millions of people to come here, regardless what you think of that, it's a path to hell. Taxes are going to go up, fees are going to go up, wages are not going to go up, everything is going to go up, poverty is going to go up, homelessness is going to go up, and once you roll out this system of high taxes, there's no going back. It's just a matter of time. You could not believe me, you could think I'm mean or crazy, but watch, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, you're going to see the same thing that happened in France, because at a certain point, luckily we're in America, and you have people like Trump and other people who are really crushing it as far as unemployment and stuff, but you push people far enough and people get poor enough and people get desperate enough, combined with the fact that California basically incentivizes poverty and protects people, and if you're a good, decent person, they throw the whole weight of the world on you. The whole strategy up from down is a total fail. And I don't even know why people voted for the governor. I mean, the other guy, I do know why. John Cox, although he might have been more likable, he was no Trump. He didn't really have a lot of energy to him. No disrespect, but I see why the other guy won, Gavin Newsom. He's more Democrat, whatever. But it's like people are digging their own graves. Like, we could have repealed the gas tax. You're getting taxed on your gas. I don't care because I don't really drive, so it doesn't bother me. But do people not notice? I don't care if you're in the entertainment industry, you're a singer, you love gay people and black people more than me, or you think you do, even though you probably don't. It's like, I don't care how liberal you think you are and how much better and holier than me you think you are, even though it's not true. Don't you realize as soon as these people's mouth starts talking, they keep stealing your money? It's because the only way they could get people to vote Democrat is if they make this whole racial division thing where it's like black, white, gay, straight, this, that, bad, good, and then you vote for somebody that's going to steal your money. If they told you what their actual platform was, we're going to take more of your money. We're going to add a cell phone tax. We're going to add a gas tax. We're going to keep taxing you. Prices of everything are going to go up. We're going to keep stealing more money. Nothing's going to work. Poverty's not going to help. We're not going to get rid of homelessness. Your neighborhoods are going to get worse. No one would vote for them. But they have this like manipulation of media, mass entertainment. You got Halsey and Beyonce telling you to vote Democrat so they can steal more of your money. And they brainwash you into your own demise. I don't understand why people don't understand yet. But at the same time, I do understand. There's a lot of manipulation from academia. You go to college now, it's basically a liberal, take your money indoctrination government camp, like the meme I posted. They got people real twisted up, and it's going to take a little bit to get out of it. But I see the revolution happening all over the place. Like, people are waking up, and California is going down the wrong path. I mean, people, get a grip here. I do think people are, but we'll see. That's it. California, thinking about text message tax. Chicago has an amusement video game tax, so they're stealing your money as people are murdering each other in Chicago, and they can't do anything about it. Never when they take my money do they ever solve the problems they say they're going to solve. So I'm sorry if you think it's mean that I want to keep my own money. Just like I don't want someone to come and rob me. Is that selfish because I don't want someone to come into my house and steal $10,000 from me? No, that's called common sense. That's called not being a slave. That's called not being a fool. That's called America. First Amendment, Second Amendment, low taxes, personal liberty. Let's not blow it and turn into Europe, because Europe's moving in the wrong direction as well.